I think I read somewhere that this year in Germany, there's been a 40% increase in startups. So that means new companies coming up, right? So we've seen a lot of companies at stage that might not even have the budget, right, to do all these things, the increase salaries, bonuses, which you talked about, which are amazing. So do you have any tips for such companies in terms of how they can keep employees happy and motivated outside the monetary aspects from your experiences, especially as founders or heads of people, heads of compensation? And I will start with, Kai on this one.
Yes, so I think for both this is very like a familiar story that when you start a company, you don't have that much cash to burn, so you really need to find your way. And for us, it's always been mixing cash compensation with equity compensation, as you discussed, right? So that does give the long term view also for the employee, and also I think then combined with the total reward story, that what do we want to offer you and what type of people do we want to get. So we do want to get the same people who, you know, who are driven by our mission and who are not just cash oriented, because probably, you know, our values wouldn't match in a sense. So you kind of combine the total compensation, total reward offering to the talent that you actually need. And I think that is very much applicable for every startup. Find your story and sell it, because you can't afford the top talent. Not all, right? Maybe few, but not everybody can be the most expensive superstar. So I think building the story really helps to attract the right kind of people into your company who then help you to grow.
Yeah, that's a really good point in terms of your story, because I think a lot of the times we notice majority of people might not even join because of salary, but because of the mission behind what you're doing. So I think that's
Exactly.
really important bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lisa, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, super similar. I think so many candidates are interested in a purpose-driven work, also to have impact, not only as a company, but basically in their role. To have a lot of freedom, also to get support and also budget for L&D, so for learning and development, to really see that the company's investing in their employees to upskill, reskill. I mean, in this fast-paced environment, everyone needs to do it. Every company needs to offer it. And then also, like I said, communication is key. Be close to your employees and really, also ask them what do they want, what do they need, what do they really enjoy about working at your company, and focus also on these topics more. And then, I see a lot of companies also investing in more flexibility. So offering remote work, offering working from home, workation, work from anywhere. We actually have a very controversial approach to this. We do offer flexibility, but we encourage an office first policy, which is, I think, very unique at the moment. But we also saw that, especially after lockdown, people were really craving this like in-person contact and meeting people again, socializing again, collaborating close to colleagues. And we invested a lot in like an amazing office space and amazing also lab spaces. We do have like dog-friendly office and everything that like is very typical for startups, like a lot of snacks. But then we do also have very unique things like regular cheese tastings, for example, very important. But then free lunches, free yoga, and also regular offsites. Like last year we went with 80 people for 5 days to Italy, and it's like it's crazy things, but it really it builds a really unique culture, and the people have like a really great relationship, and they love coming to the office, and they love FORMO for this uniqueness and also all the benefits. I mean, also we have a lot of benefits on top of that, like mobility or sports, language courses. And I think there's a lot around that that you can do, a lot around base salary. And also we offer ESOP to everyone, which is a big part of the compensation as well. I think especially in our stage in like Series A, yeah, this is definitely, I think, win-win for the company as well as employees to contribute on the company's success.
Nice, thanks for sharing, Lisa. I wanted to ask you, especially with the, as you said, controversial, but I don't think it's controversial, to be honest. I think a lot of companies, we've seen that shift from into hybrid, I think, which also builds on the culture of the companies. But have you had any pushback from any employees, and how have you dealt with that? Obviously, this is not super related to the compensation, but I'm also just curious to know how you have handled
Yeah.
the situation.
So we had from candidates, we had some question marks, but how we're solving this, we always like invite the candidates on site for on-site interviews, and then they just see the office, they see the culture, the spirit, and then they're like, okay, I want to work here. So this really helped with candidates. And if they say, okay, I only want to work remote, I don't want to meet people, then maybe it's also not the right fit. And with internal people, we do also have a balance between scientists who work in the lab, so they cannot work from anywhere, but then with our business people just need the laptop and can work from the train, plane, an island. We do offer flexibility 100%, but in general, we also, to keep it fair, we also say, okay, if people want to visit their family in like France or Spain or wherever, they definitely can also work from there for a couple of days. So we just try to always offer something on an individual basis, and by balancing, of course, to keep it fair. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for elaborating on that, Lisa. Virgil, so you are next up on this question.
So I'd love to react to Kaye and Lisa's point, first of all. And to Lisa's point, the first thing, I think it's interesting how we're like, oh, it's controversial to say we're office first. My thinking is I love companies who are, once again, true to who they are and their core belief. And I think I wouldn't be surprised to have more and more candidates, or already candidates attracted to a company being like, yeah, it's not a bad word to say we're office first. We value the office culture. We value, and there's a lot of people that are actually out there being like, I want to get back to a culture that's office first because I'm tired of remote and hybrid. So I think it's good to have companies who are true to their belief. And coming back to the compensation discussion on that, as an example, I posted last week about one of our client companies' example of a true controversial statement to their core belief in compensation, which is what they do. They had a premium on the yearly salary of all their employees, depending on the number of dependents from the person. Meaning, if one employee has like 2 kids or 1 kid and 1 parent that are financially depending on them, they get a premium of, I think, 3,000 euros per year for that, which means that 2 people with the same level of experience and same role could have different salaries depending on their number of dependents. You know, that gets them a lot of hate, but there's a lot of people who are like, you know what? Why do they do that? Because they believe that solidarity is one of their core beliefs at a company, and they want to support the people who have to financially support other people. And you know what? If 80% of people hate that decision, why should you do change the salary of someone based on their personal situation? They have 20% who absolutely love what the company does. And in fact, they shared recently the statistic that 80% of their executive committee members reduce their compensation to join them. That's a company that's out there with like true controversial statements and like belief in terms of compensation that actually attract part of their person. And so I think it's a great thing that people assume who they are or how who they are in their reward strategy. And then I want to, once again, and Lisa was saying, and Lisa, in fact, Lisa and Kaye were saying, reward strategy, you need to be true to who you are. And Lisa was mentioning communicating well is super important. One statistic, Josh Bersin, a very famous analyst, maybe the most famous HR analyst company in the world, released a study a few months ago that showed that it's 13 times more motivating for an employee to be perceived as being paid fairly rather than a salary increase. Like if you think just showing a salary increase at someone will help motivation and engagement, it's not as sure at making sure that person knows why they're getting an increase, knows how the company is ensuring people are being paid like fairly, and there's a strong sense of equity in the company. So communicating about why you do things when it comes to compensation is super important, right? So I'd say that in practical advice, communicating, even when you don't have budget is super important. And then I'll finish with, I mean, there's lots of stuff you can do, but at the end of the day, if you're like planning to say we don't have any budget for salary increase, it can, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. If people expected to be on this webinar and being like, okay, I will find the 10 secrets to keep people happy without any salary increases. I think if we had the secrets, we'd be filling the course to that secret instead of doing webinars. The truth is any measure that anytime you're going to say, okay, no salary increase this year, it has to be a temporary measure because at some point you get to have budget, right? But in terms, we've shown a lot of measures and we can discuss more measures that don't take a lot of budget, but at some point it's unrealistic to consider that you can live without salary increase budget. And in fact, in a recent study that we're going to release soon, I think there's only 10% or less than 10% of companies that plan to have no increase in the upcoming year. 90% of companies, even those that are not doing well and are doing layoff, are planning to have an increase. So still at some point, I think you need to plan for that, right?
Thank you so much for sharing. So there have been a lot of questions that came in that are sort of related to what we've been talking about here. So